afternoon, everybody. My name is Rick Batico. I head up marketing and communications for an organization called Team Neo. Team Neo is a business attraction organization to get businesses here, and those that are here help them grow. Talent is a big issue, of course, in our world, and what happens to talent talks a lot about how successful we'll be as an organization in attracting businesses here and help our economy grow. So this topic's very important to us. I'm very pleased to be here to moderate this panel. Before I get into asking you a couple questions to get things started, I'd like the panel to introduce themselves. So we want to start at the end.
Good morning. My name's Ed Evans. I'm retired military. I served 21 years in the U.S. Army. 14 of it was in the HR field. Since I got out, I've been in HR for 10 years, so I have about 24 years of experience in the HR. And by the way, to let you know, the Army does have paid interns. We call them privates.
Good afternoon. My name's Margie Judd. My company is Executive Arrangements. It's a 36-year-old privately held firm that helps companies with their talent attraction and retention services. So our job is to create a perfect day in someone's life to let them envision what life could be like in Northeast Ohio during the recruiting process. And I've got some insights for how we do that even on the internship and YP level.
Hi, everybody. My name is Evan Ishida, and I am a member with an organization called Thrive at Work. We do basically work to help people love their work. Our focus is on strategy, leadership, innovation, learning, and happiness. But I'm also here today as a board member and one of the founding members of an organization called Engage Cleveland, which is all focused on helping to connect young professionals to the community, to institutions, and to organizations. And it's interesting, I'm looking around and I'm seeing some of our volunteers, I'm seeing former board members, and parents of former board members as well. So looking forward to it.
So we have a great panel here with lots of diversity in terms of their skill sets and their perspectives. And our job is to challenge these individuals as we talk about how we retain interns here once we convince them to be interns here. But let's learn a little bit about you now that you know a little bit about us. Just by a show of hands, how many people are here from some kind of a company or corporation? Just raise your hands, please. Thank you. And then how many people are here from some academia, be it high school through college or, okay, great. And how about nonprofit organizations that are working in this space? Okay, so we got an excellent distribution. That's what I was hoping for as we dig into this. What I'd like to do is read something from a blogger, an intern blogger. And the title of her blog was called Retaining Student Interns in Silicon Valley. So if they're having trouble retaining interns in Silicon Valley, then maybe what she has to say is some enlightenment for us. She writes, and this is short, she writes, what's the point of having an intern program where so many have to question themselves why they would come back to this company or organization? At the same time, a job is a job. Places like Cisco are stable and comfortable. That's where she's interning. But the cool culture reputation affects postgraduate career choices tremendously. To companies that don't have as a high a return on student interns, I would suggest revamping your program if you want students to have a desire to work for you. And if you're at a point in life where choosing between the cool factor and a stable job, I'd suggest you pick the route that's going to make you happiest. Duh. That's her saying that, not me. And don't rely on the interview or Glassdoor. Connect with people on LinkedIn who are in your shoes and learn from their experiences. Sometimes a cool, cultured company won't make you happy. So I'm going to throw this question to our panelists, and anybody can jump in and take it. Does cool matter? Do you need to be a cool company to get people in that demographic to want to work for you?
One thing I forgot to mention to you, I'm an HR director for Maloney & Devotney, which is a CPA firm. And one of the things that I've heard throughout this incredible summit is you got to treat interns like employees, and I completely agree. So when we go to hire interns, we hire them 4 to about 8 months out before they start. And so what we do during that waiting period is we reach out to them and invite them to company functions, company events, so that they get an opportunity to understand who we are, and we get an understanding of who they are. So by the time they start the internship, they probably know approximately 50% of the organization. And to me, it's not about being cool. It's about having a relationship with the intern, and the intern having a relationship with us.
Margie, you're often recruiting professional talent coming here, and we're trying to attract people from the East Coast to the West Coast, some places that some people might consider cool. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think that the word cool might be sort of a tricky word here. I think that they want certain things and there needs to be an authentic, hip vibe, but I think cool might be a little bit more of a trendy word that might not be as applicable. I think that when we are out with groups of people sort of in the age range that you're thinking of in terms of interns, the things that they're telling us are, you know, is my rent going to be affordable enough so I have extra money at the end of the day to go out and play?
So having money is cool.
So having money is definitely cool.
Make a note of
You know,
that.
as the neighborhoods say. So the cool vibe, I think, has more to do with, is this the kind of town I want to live in and work in? And along those lines, I think it has more to do with, do I see myself being able to grow here in the job? Is a lot more important than do they give free meals or do they take us to baseball games. It's a career path at that point.
Evan, what's your perception? Is Cleveland and greater Cleveland any cooler than it used to be, or does that matter?
It matters. Cool does matter. But I do agree that I don't know that cool is defined by ping pong tables and flexible work hours and those types of things. I think cool is a relative term. And I think that really what it boils down to in my mind is, do interns and do people feel like they have the ability to leverage their strengths and passions to make positive change? And you can do that in a number of organizations. So what I would say is a cool organization, it could be any type of company, but if it empowers and it enables people to leverage their strengths and passions to make positive change, then I would guess you're probably going to be called cool in some Glassdoor. I think that's the website where people rate organizations.
Good. Now, as we have our discussion up here, I really want to hear from you. We're not going to do us talk for a while and then have a Q&A period after that. We want to engage you. There are a couple people with microphones here, and they'll be happy. So if you're hearing anything that resonates with you, if you have any questions, we want them. Raise your hand. We want your statements. We want your questions. Most importantly, I don't want anybody leaving here today not having the issue they came here with addressed, or not having a question they came here with addressed. Make sure you get the information you're looking for before you leave here today. And this session is your last chance to do that, so we want to make sure that happens. What kind of tools and techniques can we use to attract and to retain people here? Are there any tricks to this, or is it, as you said, just simply getting to know the people, the familiarity? What else is there?
Well, one of the things we do is, and I know this is going to come off like I'm bragging because it works, it's our orientation process. We basically dedicate an entire week where we treat, as I told you before, we treat them like employees to the point where we will go over benefits with the interns. Even though they're not eligible for benefits, we actually give them a training on what to look for when they get that job offer. You know, in terms of medical, dental, vision. We even have a financial advisor come in and go over why they should start a 401k as soon as they get their first job offer. Whether they select us to be the firm that they work for, yeah, that'd be nice. But we want to set them up for success to the point where wherever they get their offer from, they're going to understand what they should be looking for up front. And by doing that, by being upfront with them, it creates a better relationship with us and them. We even have younger staff personnel come in and give them a class on professional etiquette. Some of our managers and senior managers, because unfortunately, we can teach them the technical, stuff, but some of the soft skills, That's where we need everyone's help in this room. Because sometimes students, as good as they are, may have trouble speaking to someone in public. Or maybe they don't know how to write a resume. Or maybe they don't know how to, I would say, talk to clients in a business environment setting. So again, our program works. And oh, by the way, at the end of the internship, they give us feedback. They fill out a survey and let us know, hey, what are we doing right and what do they recommend us changing with our orientation program? And then we share that information with future interns.
That's really helpful. In the room, is anybody representing companies, or if you're in academia, students that you work and the experiences they've had, or if you're in the nonprofit sector, what else are you hearing that's working to keep students here? Anybody want to offer anything? Here, we have a microphone? It's coming. The nice thing about this is we have lots of space for people with mics to move. If you've ever been to the City Club and they're all crammed in there and they have questions and the poor people with mics are crawling and jumping over people, go ahead.
I am Jill with Cleveland Leadership Center, and I direct our iCleveland program.
Yes.
And so we have employers that will enroll their interns in our 6-week summer program. And just to kind of echo what Evan said, I think it's really important that interns feel like they can have a positive change, not only in their organization, but also in the community. And so we do that by connecting them with other young professionals in the community to engage Cleveland, to other internship programs in the community, and talent attraction, and really going beyond taking them to baseball games and showing them the consumer side of Cleveland. We show them Cleveland from the inside out. So they see emerging neighborhoods, they go back to campus, and they're like, wow, I know a great secret, and that's Cleveland is a great place to live. And it really enhances, I think, their summertime here, but also they note that investment from their employers in the program. So I think it's really important to get them connected to the people and then the places in Cleveland, and then they link that back to their employer.
It's great to know the organization you're working with, but it's also great to know the surroundings and where they might be living. Anybody else?
Hi, we just started an internship program, so first of all, a shout out to the Notre Dame Career Center. Nice job. Got 2 interns we're really pleased with. One of the things we did when they first came on board, first of all, we hired them as digital marketing interns, and many of you might be looking for the social media kind of expertise that this age group brings to the table. So we are partnered with HubSpot as our partner of choice for delivering social media and digital marketing. So by being a HubSpot client, they can get HubSpot credentials. And whether you use HubSpot or Marketo or Hootsuite or Salesforce or whatever tool you might have out there that might have a credential associated with it, that might be something, we certainly were pushing that when it came to the intern. And then I went out to LinkedIn and showed them under jobs, if you search HubSpot for the credential to see how many job openings are there, you would see in the US there are over 600 openings. And then you might say to yourself, well, that's great, but I have no desire to move to those other cities, nor do I want you to. I want you to stay here. So then I would do a search, HubSpot space remote. And there were over 60 positions that were remote. So they could still stay in Cleveland, still have a great quality of life here, but have an opportunity that might be a remote one. You can also do the same with the term virtual. So those are my 2 tips on how to get that intern to stay in Cleveland.
That's really great. Here, another one.
Hello. Just a random student at CSU.
Everybody, random student.
I think a huge contribution to retaining students, as I'm a student or an intern, and a past intern at a nonprofit here, is it goes back to that attraction. I was between 3 different schools in 3 different states, some small, some big. What attracted me to Cleveland was the engagement, the history, and the public transportation. So I think a huge contribution or huge focus that you all are leaders, and for us, future leaders, is to help us build the infrastructure, help us, make it cool, build up the transportation, nightlife, things like that, to make us want to stay. Because outside of work, that's just a small portion of what's going to keep us here in general life. So,
Hey, give us at least your first name. You are?
my name is Aloysius.
Great, in case someone wants to talk to you later. Good. Another? Yes.
Hi, I'm Jean Kaler, and I'm the director of Summer on the Cuyahoga, which is an internship program that's been in Cleveland since 2003, and it's all about increasing the talent pool by bringing talent to Cleveland that's not familiar with it, or even students that live in the suburbs, bringing them downtown and having them live as young professionals. And I think that's how we sell Cleveland, because it's not like they have an internship and then they go home and they're with their mom and dad or their high school friends, but they really see what the city offers for young professionals. But I think that our model, we work with 8 schools that have active alumni associations, and that's how we're funded. Those alumni work as hosts, and they sort of create that connection for those students to the city. But one thing we've been really trying to do is to work with other internship programs, because what I've noticed is we're not New York, we're not Boston, we're not San Francisco yet, but when our interns are here and they are in a cohort of 70 kids living together downtown, spending evenings and weekends together, they bond with one another, they bond with the city. But how about if all these internship programs, so you have 2 interns, you have 5, but if we did things socially where the 600, 700 interns that are here in the summer see that volume, that population of young people that all want to come to Cleveland, that sells it better. You know, something is always more attractive that other people want as well. So I think if we all have great internship programs, but if we're working in vacuums, it just doesn't make sense. But if we can work together, and that's something, you know, this summit might be a start, but I really, going forward, think that, you know, we can empower all of our efforts if we do work together.
That's a great idea.
that real quick?
Summer on the Cuyahoga is a fantastic program, and I'm not just saying that because Jean is the wife of my boss. I would never be so shallow. Evan, go ahead.
No, I just want to pick up on what Jean was just mentioning. What we know is that 3 out of 4 young professionals pick a city before they pick a job. So they pick a city they want to move to, and they pick work. And the work that our internship programs are doing that Jill and Jean mentioned, and some of the others, like Global Cleveland and so forth, you know, they're focused on connecting people to what's happening in the community. And that's that connection where people feel like they can find purpose and find meaning. That's where things come alive, and that's where people find deeper connections to other people, to things where they feel like they can make change happen. And that's what will attract people to cities. That's what that'll you know, the fog will blow off the harbor when it comes to like amenities and things like that, but if people don't feel like they can make change and have an impact, you know, that's not really going to engage them in the community. So we've got to elevate that message to folks when we're talking to them, and using these types of programs is a great way to do that.
Well, and if I could build on that a little bit, maybe 2 months ago, we were with a mini bus load. There were 7 people that a corporation in Avon Lake was recruiting. And we do this 150 times a year, so we're constantly sort of experiencing Cleveland through the eyes of somebody seeing it for the first time consistently. And so you hear very interesting things, but this term came up, and it just sounds like what everyone has been describing here. There were 2 25-year-olds talking to each other, and they were going to be joining the leadership management program at this firm, and comparing it to the other cities and that they had looked at for jobs. And one of them said, well, it seems like you could be IRL so much more in Cleveland. And I was like, am I the only person in this vehicle that doesn't know what IRL means? And it means in real life. So he was talking about, we communicate through Twitter, Facebook, like it's all virtual, but they actually have a term for it. It's called IRL. And it was just so funny that he talked about how, you know, it's not that hard to get to, it's not that hard to park, it's not that expensive, you don't have to get the tickets 6 months in advance, so you can do more things in real life. You don't have to just tweet about it. And I was thinking, I never really thought of my own city in those terms before, but you need a 25-year-old to shed the light on it. But it sounds like what everybody in here is doing. It's like, think about what you could do at your own organization that's sort of a version of, you know, on that bus trip, we didn't hand them a map of the metro parks. We actually stopped at Edgewater Park, and we had one of the executives from the metro parks come and meet the students and talk to them about the concerts down on the beach in the summer, and the, you know, the co-ed volleyball leagues, and the running paths, and the places where you could rent a kayak. He painted the picture for them, and they were standing somewhere. So think of not just sharing this information about all of the resources out there, but enrolling them in a program that will help them do that, or use a service, or engage Evan and his organization, because they'll listen to you, but unless you physically take them someplace and encourage them to participate in something that's going on right then and there, 3 months from then, they'll be on to the next place that they're doing an internship, and they'll remember some of the things you've told them, but they won't have done the IRL part of it. And I think that's the most critical piece.
Any other comments or questions before we go ahead? Over here. Oh, got two? Okay.
My name is Jose Feliciano, and you're not going to believe this. Yes, I know there's a singer by the name of Jose Feliciano. And what I'm interested in doing is trying to develop linkages between the Hispanic community and these internship programs, and to try to do that in an institutional way. And so, I have an instinct for it. We have a great organization called Esperanza. There's other organizations that deal with that, but I don't see our kids doing this in a systematic way. It's sort of done ad hoc, and so I'm interested in getting suggestions and developing relationships where this can be done in an institutional way for Hispanic kids.
Anybody have comments about that? Well, that sounds like a big open issue that needs to be addressed. One thing I've heard as we talk about IRL is that we are a big small town, and so connections are pretty easy to make here. I think it's very important to get our networks going for interns, to be welcoming to interns, to realize the access they have here. It's great to be able to get to the lake easily. It's great to be able to get those tickets easily. But it's even greater to have access to real business decision makers who can have an impact on their career. Can you just talk a little bit about how we get people involved in the community and how we get them connected beyond their work life?
Well, Evan, why don't you start that, and I'll take it from there.
Sure. That's actually one of the reasons why I got involved in my civic work, was because I had moved here from Columbus, and I realized that I was working in Cleveland but still living in Columbus, and I felt very out of balance, and I decided that I was going to make an effort to try to, I like to call it, get off the couch and go actually try to participate in something before I start complaining about something. And so that led me to kind of this young professional environment in Cleveland, where there was the 2030 Club and all these other different organizations, and I joined that one. And I really experienced the power of learning more about the community with others, in relation with other people. Gave me leadership experience that I was not getting at my job, and allowed me to really appreciate what was around me. And I went from thinking I would live here for 2 years to it's been 11 years since I made that decision. So what we've done is help, through Engage Cleveland, what we've tried to do is to create better connectivity to this ecosystem, this young professional environment that exists out there, so that it's easier for people to figure out where to go. Because that was one of the biggest issues. You could search on Google Young Professional and you get all of these different organizations, and you start asking yourself, which one's for me? Where do I go? There's happy hours happening all the time. Which one to show up to learn more? And what we're trying to do is create almost like a hub, a grand central station, if you will, where you can arrive and you can see what might be of interest to you, and then you can move on and get connected. Because it is very connected. And I would encourage any of the employers in the room to strongly promote and push involvement and engagement outside of work, because that life balance between connection in my job and connection to my community is what really, not only do you get people to stay longer, but you actually really accelerate the growth of that individual too, because they're learning things outside of the workplace as well.
Evan, how many young professional groups would you say we have in Greater Cleveland?
Last of our count, it was 85.
There is a young professional group for literally everything.
There is one for you, yeah. But they break down, so employers are creating their own, so the employee resource groups, young professional groups, nonprofits are creating associate boards, we consider those. And then there are what we call affinity groups, like the Young Latino Network, Motivations, Young Professional Senate, those types of organizations for people who have affinity, they can get together with people as well. So we consider all of those kind of the ecosystem.
So if you're thinking about getting your interns involved and you're not exactly sure how to do that, Evan and Engage Cleveland is a great first stop, your connections to everybody. We have several other questions. Somebody had a question over here. Go ahead, and then we'll come back.
I did have a question. My name is Patty. I'm from the College of Graduate Studies here at the university. And it circles back to your original statement about the difficulty in retaining talent. And my question is, it's a little bit of a takeoff on that. I work primarily with graduate students who are, I'm helping to bridge them from the academic world into, helping them with professional development and with career development. And this is an underrepresented group, but I have a number of students who come to me, and they're mainly STEM students who are trying to stay in the area, trying to find work. They're in very highly demanded fields, but for the most part, they're international students, so they're here on student visas. So, we're looking to identify employers for them that will eventually offer, a working visa for them and an opportunity to gain, employment in the U.S. From an organization point of view, we know that it's complicated and there are many complex legalities in making that happen. I'm just wondering what your points of view are organizationally, excuse me, and maybe you particularly, let's see, it would be Evan, Engage Cleveland. I imagine that would be a topic that comes up frequently with maybe some of your population. What can we do? These are students who, many of them are very entrepreneurial. They want to stay here. They want to bring their families here. They want to settle here. So we want to try to retain that talent.
I was going to push that question back out to the group too, because that's one that I would like to know. But I know, to your point, you look at, for example, Case. There are Case Western in particular, or even here on campus, we've got all of this talent that comes here, and we regrow that talent, and then we're challenged to find opportunities for those folks to stay. I know, I believe at one point, or I don't know if they are currently, but I know Global Cleveland was kind of looking into this. How do we do more around that? I think Jasmine's over there. But anyway, won't put you on the spot unless you, oh, she's already got the mic. Great.
Yeah.
Hi, so actually, very loud. My name is Jasmine. I'm actually the welcome coordinator at Global Cleveland, but my colleague over there, Jessica, she's our talent manager, and one of the big programs that we have been working on last year and going into this year is our Global Employer Certification Program. And we are really doing a major effort to educate businesses and work with businesses who are willing to hire international talent. And I know that you just mentioned that there are, issues in regards to legalities and things like that, but sometimes it's not as hard as it seems. So we do have a program, and if you contact us, Jessica is jessica@globalcleveland.org. You can look on our website. We have tons of resources. We would love to talk with anybody who has questions about how to help their international students obtain internships. And then on an earlier point, so I am a transplant. I moved here to go to graduate school. The Case knew absolutely no one when I moved to this city. But I did find that Cleveland is a place where you can be a big fish in a small pond. And from that, I was able to, I am one of the 85 Young Professionals organization. I'm the co-founder of an organization called the Cleveland Young Professional Minority Women's Group. And we are an organization that has a network of over 200 women in the city, primarily women of color, who are trying to, one, stay in the city of Cleveland and find opportunities to advance their careers. I think that I've had some very successful internships that have led me to be in my position at Global Cleveland. I think a lot of people are not as lucky as me, though. And what we have to do is figure out how we can consistently engage the older generations to reach back and pour into young professionals who are actively engaged, loving the city, and want to stay here. So I'm excited to hear some more of the dialogue. I think that there are organizations doing great things, and I am glad to answer any questions about our Global Employer Program, along with, I'm sure, Jessica, when you guys are done. So.
Very helpful. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you. My name is Marcia Moreno. I am from Esperanza. So I did not see Jose earlier, but I wanted to make two comments. First, I came to the US 10 years ago to stay for 2 years and then go back to Chile. Here I am 10 years later, and I stayed because a nonprofit believed on me. They gave me an opportunity to do my optional practical training, which is an OPT, free work visa kind of thing for all the companies, for all international students that finish their degree in the US. I did my master's at CSU. El Barrio gave me an opportunity and I was allowed to stay, and here I am now. I found my husband and I'm staying here for the longest time. So that's one thing, and as I say, I was an international student. I just came for 2 years, but Cleveland gave me the opportunities that my home country, unfortunately, I have to say, did not give me. So look for them. We're out there. We're very many. We're very motivated, and we want to make it happen, to stay here and make it here our home. My second comment is more about what Jose was mentioning, and even though he was looking for some of the linkages, I still think that we have a lot of work to do, but some things are happening, and we're making it happen in Esperanza. We are working with companies. For those of you who don't know who we are, we're an after-school enrichment program, and we also provide scholarships for Hispanic kids in Cleveland that want to go to college. We recently created our Alumni Association, which comprises about 300 Hispanic kids, all college graduated. And we're working with companies like you that are looking for internship, for employees, whatever way we want to connect. We want to connect with you. And even though, again, there is a lot of work to be done, we're starting to do some of it, and I will be happy to work with as many companies as possible to find those meaningful employments for all those kids that are looking for a job. Thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Any other comments before we move on? Yeah, real quick. Microphone's right there.
And it probably would be, I assume, best suited, open to anybody really, but I was thinking about Richard, yourself, and Evan in this question specifically though. In regard to retaining talent, is there any kind of research or looking outside of our city at other models? I know someone mentioned, I think we may not be San Francisco or New York or places like that, but within some of those places, there are certain models at some point in time that I assume that they kind of laid out that help them to retain talent. Have we looked at perhaps looking at some of those models and seeing what we can take from those that fit our city?
I can toss out some ideas. Well, we recently had a client that talked about how the talent pipeline is such an hourglass shape now based on the demographics of Americans, and that it's completely changed how they work to lure people to Cleveland and to their company. And he gave me some statistics in terms of, what the ideal candidate looks like from our end, and then look at the demographics of them nationally. And here are some of the things he told me. He said, so of the millennials that they were recruiting, the under 35s that they were aiming for to fill the pipeline, he said 68% have never been married, 32% of the moms have always been single, 44% are non-white, 38% are bilingual, and they account for 1 in every 5 same-sex couples in America. So when you think about sort of the demographic of who you're trying to recruit, how do you show off our city as the ideal place for that kind of a person to be eager, happy, comfortable to settle here? And he said, so you need to find somebody at your firm who represents that for each piece. And if somebody in your firm is not sort of the go-to person on everything that is interesting to the under 35s, you need to designate somebody that way, because when they come in, they really need to hear all of the resources available to them, and how do they ever connect with Engage Cleveland and those kinds of things. So I don't know if there's a city that has the perfect model. It's just like, look at the demographics of the country and try and figure out how do we make our city, which I think is fairly easy compared to a lot of other, a little bit more white bread cities. We've such a diverse compilation of what created Cleveland that we have one of everything. Here we may not have 10 of everything like some bigger cities, but we have at least one of every kind of house of worship, every kind of restaurant. So it's more looking at the demographics.
I know in our talent attraction work with Cleveland Plus, at clevelandplus.com, we have a talent attraction site. It's all free, and HR people use it to help recruit talent to our region. We're very careful to make sure we represent who we really are. A lot of people don't realize, especially if they're on the coast looking in, to the Midwest, which they have their own perceptions of. They don't realize we have 117 ethnic groups here, that we speak 86 languages, that we have every religion under the sun, and all the professional associations. There are so many ways to get connected. The big barrier we found when we did our research before we started the talent piece was people are afraid there won't be somebody like them here. Well, chances are there is somebody like them here, and there are a lot of people like them here. So we have to work very hard to make that point. We had a comment?
Using my psychology and math background, it looks like you've got one problem, retaining proven talent, but I think you have two problems. The first problem is breaking that up into two. Retaining talent from elsewhere, which seems like it's easier because they've been elsewhere, they've seen elsewhere, and they like it here, than retaining talent that comes from here, who've grown up here and it's kind of like it's still home kind of thing. So I think you have to, really look at who you're trying to retain specifically and then tailor it to them. Because I think the people who don't come from here like it here. People who grew up here, I don't know.
In our talent work, we know that some of our best people to attract to the region are people that came from here. When it's time to start their family, when it's time for certain parts in their life, they're very, very easy to attract back here. But that is a good point. Any comments related to that?
At Maloney and Novotny, 90 to 95% of our staff and senior accountants and even managers were interns with us years ago. So we have a really good retainability percentage. So in my opinion, internships work. You just got to put the work in. But I'm telling you, they work. And I'm living proof.
And if you disagree with that, remember he was in the military. So careful what you say now. Yeah. Any other questions before we move on?
Well, I just want a quick comment on that. It is not the solution, but it's an idea and one that I think folks are starting to play with. And I know there was a topic earlier around high school, but when we did a little bit of work with like Hawken, for example, and they had there was an issue with kind of retaining young professional teachers. So they would come in, they'd move to the east side, and then they would turn over and they would keep bringing these teachers in. And we started to find out that when we started to kind of help take, we took teachers out on a little tour of Cleveland, kind of similar to what you guys do, but they started to connect with one another and they started to learn more about what was happening in the community. And so what we started to think about was how powerful could the influence be if we put an emphasis on teachers who had a direct connection point to the kids that were living here, and how we shape perceptions of our community at a younger age so that it doesn't become, by the time I'm in junior high, I'm already thinking to myself, I'm out of here when I graduate or I'm gone, and that remains true until you prove it, versus I can't wait to contribute back to this community. Because the narrative, as we know, is we're still working on that outside of, downtown in particular. When the Cavs win a championship, I think that'll help a little bit as well. So. But anyway, just a thought around teachers, using teachers as a tool to help shape that perception of the community.
Any other? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to what Ed said about the military earlier, because there are a couple of other internships that the military has that are also paid internships. One of them is called the Military Academies, and the other one's called ROTC. And they do somewhat the same thing, and they even allow you to intern for a few years, and if you decide you don't like it, you can leave.
Good. Okay, some more tips. Margie, you're the expert at convincing people to decide to live here. Can you talk about some of the barriers that you run into, some of the perceptions they might have? An intern who's been in a company and maybe did not take the opportunity to get out may still hold some perceptions. What are some of the things you run into, and how do you offset that?
Well, you mentioned one earlier. It's the whole concept of Midwest. And if they're not from the Midwest, there's an instant image that comes to their mind that doesn't really reflect Cleveland, because we're the furthest east of the 12 states known geographically as the Midwest. And people get in the car with us, and I can tell that they have this image of sort of white, middle class, kind of country bumpkin, not a lot of culture, I don't think they expect to see cows and, farms, but not far off, especially if they're coming from one of the coasts. And so understanding sort of that Cleveland, out of all of Ohio even, is the most diverse and interesting, both architecturally, the topography, everything is really helps them to physically see it, to understand it. But I would say that one of the biggest challenges that we see lately with people who are under the age of 40 is you come into a new town, you probably want to rent for your first 6 months or year, and Cleveland was never really set up as a rental town. I mean, housing is so affordable here that you hit a certain age, like your early 30s, and you can have a mortgage that's cheaper than your rent payment, so most people end up buying. So you come in and you want to explore a little bit before you plop down some money, or maybe you don't know how long you're going to live here, so you only want to rent for a while. Or maybe this is a 2 or 3 year project and they're going to send you, the company's going to send you off to another spot, so you don't want to buy. We're just starting to turn that corner with affordable housing options for kids who don't want to pay $2 a square foot like some of the downtown things, because they're beyond the age of wanting roommates, but they want modern with amenities, and that doesn't describe a lot of neighborhoods that we have that have rentals available. So when you think of the rental dense neighborhoods in Cleveland, they tend to be older, like the ones close into the city, and that's where the young professionals want to live. They want walking, they want to Uber or take public transportation to most places, and they want to be able to walk out of their door at night, leave their car, if they have one, at home, and just experience the city on foot. And we're just starting to get to that vibe right now. So downtown is a great neighborhood, but it's at a certain price point. So if you don't have a roommate in downtown, chances are you might almost be on the empty nester age range. So I think that's something that our city is slowly coming to terms with, and you see more and more real estate developers starting to develop those kinds of things. But that is obviously the biggest chunk out of someone's paycheck every month, and it's something I think we really need to address as a city.
Very helpful. We're coming closer on time, and we will end on time. One reason I'm so highly paid as the moderator is to make sure we end on time. But because of that, I want to make sure that if we have any other questions, anybody here who had anything, whether it's related to this exact topic or not, if you had any questions, let's make sure we get those out now. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask about? Go ahead. Right here, I'm sorry.
So I think this is applicable for all of the panelists in whatever way, shape, or form you've been exposed to it, but a lot of the conversation around sort of selling Northeast Ohio as a region has focused on exposing the students, the interns to these things. But I have also been in rooms with a lot of fully employed native Clevelanders or people who moved here a decade ago who are really not the best spokespeople for what's available to do, how to experience the city. People who haven't been downtown in 5 years, people who've never been to the flats, which are, kind of relevant areas for young professionals. And so are there efforts that you're aware of, either through your own companies or through the work that you all are doing, that try to get Clevelanders to better understand, appreciate, and enjoy Cleveland such that we are great spokespeople for this town?
Well, I know from what we're working on at it from the Engaged Cleveland perspective, and I've got another point too, by the way, of course. But it's around helping employers by equipping the folks that have those touch points, whether it's HR, whether it's management, to have a better pitch, to have a little bit more intel, if you will, on things that are happening and things that might be relevant for young people. We started to do the outreach with, for example, Young Professional Week. It's a week in June where we really encourage employers to let their young professional workforce kind of come visit us for a lunch or a morning, or leave early to go attend a panel or something like that. But I think that there is an opportunity there, and we're kind of scratching the surface, but it's how do we create these advocates almost, if you will. We call them engagers, where they can help sell it, and they can encourage folks to get out. The other point to that, and it relates to retention, is not just selling the community, but it's selling your company when interns are there. So we know that 80%, this is kind of discouraging, but 80% of the workforce is disengaged. They are disengaged at work. And these are the folks that are talking to your interns. And how well are they doing selling the culture and the opportunities and the things happening there? So we've got to do work on both ends. And we have to create more inclusive environments. That's another panel topic for another time, but it all kind of relates to that. So I look at both of those, advocating for the city and for your own company with these folks.
And there's so many resources in this town. I mean, when I hear about all the things that Cleveland Leadership Center is doing, and Bulldogs on the Cuyahoga, and Engage Cleveland, and Executive Arrangements has a blog, and Rick Batico's team does an unbelievable job of sharing good news about things that are happening in our city. Like, even if that could just be distributed amongst the key people that talk to the folks that your company is trying to attract, there's so many things out there. You don't have to have gone to the flats in the last year to be able to talk about it intelligently. I mean, between the videos and the online stuff, there's so much that you can share. It's just making sure you have the right positive person who's engaged talking to people about it.
Well, I think we've hit our limit. This piece of paper with all these questions on it turned out to be just a prop. So thank you very much for all of your engagement, because that's what makes these sessions so helpful.